It's time now for County-Wide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Brad Miller as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives here in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's County-Wide.
Good day to you. I'm Brad Miller. It's County-Wide. We're happy to welcome into studio a guest that we've talked to any number of times. Tim Carter is the county school superintendent for Yavapai County, and we've chatted with Tim, many, many times over the years. But you always have interesting things to say, and we welcome you back into our studio again today. There's a few things that we want to talk about, I guess, as school starts up again, and the kids, the youngsters, the young people, the young men and women. I've got one in high school now, Tim. The young men and women all head back to class for the fall. We're talking about schools and things that are happening. And at the state legislature, they never seem to quite stop talking about schools. Mr. Huppenthal, state schools chief, is asking the governor and the legislature to return funding that essentially was never allocated. And Tim will help me understand that, and through that we'll all get a better understanding on that. Common Core, we're hearing about this. Ames, Common Core, are they one and the same? How do they fit together? Tim's going to talk a little bit about that too. So that'll be kind of the gist of our program. But first up, in the news daily for all of us since late June has been the Yarnell Hill fire. And there are some efforts underway through your office to become part of that legacy in a very positive way, it sounds like. Tell me about the education funds that have been set up.
Well, I personally knew 11 of the young men, and of course, if you've lived in the Prescott area very long, right, a lot of people certainly knew them and knew their family. And it was such a negative issue that we were dealing with, and so many of us thought there has to be some way to try to turn it into a positive. And we think we've done that. There are really 3 different funds that are set up specifically for education. And they all function a little differently, and they have a little bit different purpose. But they're all aimed to help the dependents of those firefighters, wives, fiancés, and children, and to take care of any educational expenses they have from preschool all the way through college. The county school superintendents, in conjunction with 5 other educational entities, the school business officials, the Arizona School Boards Association, the teachers through the Arizona Education Association, ABEC, the Arizona Business Education Coalition, and the Arizona School Administrators, so our superintendents and our principals, have all created the Prescott Granite Mountain Hotshots Education Fund. Okay. And it really is designed to take care of those 26 folks through the youngest child, which is actually unborn at this point, for 22 years. Any educational needs they might have. And of course, we have all of that run through the ASBA, the School Boards Foundation, so it's all tax privileged. And every single penny that we receive is going to be going to those families. There's no fees or anything like that associated with it. And if folks would like to donate to that, they certainly can just send a check to my office, and I'll make sure it gets to where it's supposed to go. Okay. Yavapai College has also, through their foundation, has created a fund. And it specifically is for assisting those folks with their college needs, both the adults now and the children when they get to be of that age. And there is a tuition waiver in Arizona for dependents of firefighters and law enforcement that are killed in the line of duty. But there are a lot of expenses outside of the tuition, books and dorm and those kinds of things. And so Yavapai is certainly stepping up and taking the lead in that regard. And the fund is portable. So it's not just for Arizona universities or colleges. They could take it to any place, accredited school, any place in the United States. And then, of course, our friends at the Yavapai Community Foundation have also created a fund. Theirs right now is actually the largest, and it is an endowment fund. So they're going to take the funds that they receive, hold those funds for 10 to 12 years, and then begin giving scholarships to that group of individuals, primarily the children, as I think it's all the way through their 30th year. Okay. So we're doing some very good things. The dollars are very specific as to how they're going to be used. And if folks would like to donate to any of those funds, I mean, we're all kind of doing things a little differently, but we're all working together. We have put together a committee. I'll represent one of the funds, and then Steve Walker from Yavapai College will represent the College Foundation, and Carol Chamberlain, who's the director of the Yavapai Community Foundation, will represent their group, and the three of us will be the portal. So the families have a single point of contact.
Okay.
So they call me, I get the committee together, and we route that request to whichever of those three funds is the most appropriate. And we've been working with the family liaison, and we think that that will work very well.
If I'm hearing this right now, where do I make the check? Since these funds are a little different, how do I know?
Actually, if folks
I want to write a check right now, who do I make it out to?
Probably the best thing would be to put the Hotshot Education Fund and just send it to me. We will put it in the fund that I mentioned first, or they could send it directly to Yavapai College if they would prefer to donate to that fund, or to the Yavapai Community Foundation if they prefer that fund. And they have very good websites and all that information.
I was going to say, is this information online yet?
It is.
I'm assuming it is, okay.
But if they want to donate through our fund, they can just send it to my work address in Prescott, which is 2970 Center Point East in Prescott, Arizona, 86301. And you can just go to our website as well, and that information is available there.
Terrific. What a terrific service for a long, long time. This will be benefiting people. Let's go ahead and take our break just a tiny bit early. Tim Carter is our guest today. When we come back, I want to talk the state schools chief wants some of this money returned to the education funds where he says it rightly belongs. We'll hear Tim's thoughts on that when we come back to Countywide.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have two ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. This could be the difference between life and death if caught in a fire.
Here in northern Arizona and throughout Yavapai County, people count on Orkin Pest Control. With over 100 years of combined experience, nobody knows how to protect your home or your business from harmful or annoying pests like the Orkin Man. To start service, contact your northern Arizona Orkin Pest Control. In the Verde Valley, call 567-5100. or Orkin Pest Control in the Prescott area at 775-8772.
Move over, AZ. Arizona's move over law requires you to move over or slow down when you drive past any vehicle pulled over with flashing lights. Any vehicle means emergency responders, roadside assistance, law enforcement, highway crews, even stranded motorists. Ignore the law and you could pay a fine. Remember, every vehicle, every time. Move over, AZ.
Sponsored by ADOT in partnership with the Arizona Broadcasters Association and this station.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
Welcome back to the program. Excuse me. Again, our guest today is Tim Carter, County School Superintendent for Yavapai County. Again, a new school year. There's never enough money. And Mr. Huppenthal, our state school superintendent, is talking or demanding, frankly, of the governor, the state legislature, to return some of the funding that really the schools, public school systems, our school systems throughout the state, have not enjoyed. That Mr. Huppenthal's position is they're required by law to have had access to. Tell me about this kind of hullabaloo now at the state capitol and what is happening.
Well, when Superintendent Huppenthal made that comment last week, I could not have been more proud of him.
Yeah.
He is a conservative Republican who served in the state legislature for many years, and he sees the same data that those of us in education have been seeing for some time, and that is that on average statewide we are down 22% in the last 5 years, and that's significant. So just think, in a person's business or in their household, if you had to cut 22% of your income and it had been depressed over a 5-year period, would you believe that you were adequately funded? And I don't think there's any doubt from people that are in the field and that work with us on a daily basis that our public schools are not adequately funded.
Yeah.
I think the governor gets that because she has certainly been pushing for some additional funding, and she's been fairly successful, especially in certain pots. But this is the first time that Superintendent Huppenthal has come out and very aggressively made that statement. I mean, he's made that statement privately to some of us, but I had not heard him say that publicly. And so I think that is hopefully going to move folks to understand the severity of the issue, and that indeed we need to start putting some of those dollars back into education. And we realize it may not happen in 1 year, but if it took us 5 years to pull 22% out, then certainly the least of the goals should be to return it within 5 years. That would make a significant difference.
Is he here? I don't know these things. That's why you're here. Isn't there some suggestion or some concern that the legislature has kind of sidestepped some of the rules, regulations, and frankly even laws about school funding?
Oh, I think that if you were to talk with governing board members and superintendents and charter directors around the state, you would definitely hear that sentiment. I think that the legislature has been in a very difficult position because they've had to cut the budget.
There's no question about that.
K-12 is a big part of that budget, so we knew we were going to have some of that funding cut along with everybody else in Arizona, and we were ready to do that. But as funding improves, then those dollars should be put back into place. I think an argument can certainly be made, at least in two particular areas, where the legislature has simply not met their statutory obligation, or they have minimized it. For example, there was a section that basically said that they had to fund districts at the rate of inflation, or a portion of it. Well, instead of them funding K-12 at the rate of inflation for all of K-12, they only funded the transportation piece of the formula, which is a very, very small piece. So their argument is we met our statutory obligation. Well, the reality is that accounts for less than 10% of our total funding. So, no, I think the sentiment out there is very definitely the state legislature has not necessarily met their statutory obligation.
You alluded to this a minute ago, but I wanted to come back to it. Superintendent Huppenthal, in what he said last week, do you think he's trying to kind of push for the general public, for the media to kind of pick up on this, and for members of the public? Are mom and dad at home a little, it hasn't kind of registered yet that we need to kind of be a little more vocal toward our state legislators and our representatives to get this money going back again? And Tim, you know as well as I do this, people on the other side of it say, hey, deal with it. We got to tighten our belts, so there's both sides, and both sides are pretty well represented in the voters in our state.
And I think both sides are well represented, and someplace in the middle is probably the correct answer. Here's the logic that I use with folks when I talk with them is, let's just take your home budget, whatever your home budget is, and cut $1,000 out of it.
Yeah.
You could probably do that. Let's cut another $1,000. Okay, you could probably do that. And let's just keep cutting $1,000 until we get to the point where people say, well, hold it. Now I'm to a point where either I don't pay my utility bill, or I don't have a cell phone, or I don't drive my car. That's where we are in public education in Arizona right now.
The cuts are really
we are to a point where additional cuts here either means a reduction in staff, an increase in class size, and elimination of programs. I mean, there's no place else to cut in reality. And that's one of the reasons why we're seeing so many districts going out for bonds and overrides to try to supplement what they have, because they can't get it any other way.
Yeah.
And boards don't want to raise tax rates. I mean, that's not something that boards enjoy doing, because they're taxpayers too. But in the middle, there has to be you have to have an adequate amount of funding. Now, we can argue, I guess, all day about what that adequate level is, but clearly, I do not personally believe, and I don't think John Huppenthal now believes, that we're adequately funded.
It seems like those things that you mentioned, reducing staff, increasing class size, those are the kinds of things that maybe most directly, or certainly have a direct impact on the quality of education a student at any grade level is going to get.
No doubt about that.
It feeds directly into that. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Now we're talking about what kind of a product, frankly, you're going to get out of the public school.
Well, and I think we could make an argument that that product has been diminished over the last several years, because if we want our schools to be comprehensive and we want to create a well-rounded individual, then when you start cutting those non-required courses, art, music, PE, drama, athletics, those kinds of things, those are all part of that education experience that most of us think are important. Now, there are folks who would obviously disagree with that.
Yeah, and that's the debate. We need to take another short break. We'll do that. Always an education from Tim Carter. He is our Yavapai County School Superintendent. We'll talk about Common Core, aims, and that after this. We'll be back to Countywide.
Having a fire escape plan is very important to keep your family safe and together in the event of a fire. When you awake to the sound of a smoke detector and smoke in your room, don't stand straight up. Carefully roll off your bed and stay low under the smoke. If your door is shut, feel the door with the back of your hand. Slowly open the door if no heat is felt. Always stay low until you get to the outside of your home. Always have 2 ways out of your house and a specified meeting place somewhere outside your home. Home escape plans should be drawn up and rehearsed on a regular basis. This could be the difference between life and death if caught in a fire.
Here in northern Arizona and throughout Yavapai County, people count on Orkin Pest Control. With over 100 years of combined experience, nobody knows how to protect your home or your business from harmful or annoying pests like the Orkin Man. To start service, contact your northern Arizona Orkin Pest Control. In the Verde Valley, call 567-5100 or Orkin Pest Control in the Prescott area at 775-8772.
Move over, AZ. Arizona's move over law requires you to move over or slow down when you drive past any vehicle pulled over with flashing lights. Any vehicle means emergency responders, roadside assistance, law enforcement, highway crews, even stranded motorists. Ignore the law and you could pay a fine. Remember, every vehicle, every time. Move over, AZ.
Sponsored by ADOT in partnership with the Arizona Broadcasters Association and this station.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
We welcome you back to the program. Again, it is Countywide, and our guest today is Tim Carter, Yavapai County School Superintendent. Common Core and aims, they're the same thing. See, I don't get this. I don't know, and I'm being a little facetious here because I know there are some that we're kind of shifting a little bit, but we're not abandoning one for the other. Is that right? Ames is the test that the kids know about and the parents know about it because it's Ames time. That's how we see it. But there's certainly a lot more to that, and it's all about accountability.
We are
and all
definitely in transition.
Okay, so what's going on?
Let's talk a little bit about
this. Please.
First of all, the standards.
Okay.
We are a standards-based society. In almost everything we have some kind of standard that we have collectively agreed we need to meet. And certainly in education, we've had standards for the last 20 years. So currently, we have the Arizona Educational Standards. And those are the standards that the teachers are required to teach. Now, they can go beyond that. The local governing board has the ability to add to it, but they can't go below that. These are the minimum academic standards for all grade levels for various subjects. That is in the process of being replaced by the Common Core standards. The Common Core standards are regional standards where groups of states have collectively gotten together and said, these are the fundamental things that we need. Where the current Arizona standards are just Arizona standards. Okay. So each individual state had their own, and now the decision has been made by those states that they want to join a region in which Common Core is provided. A couple of pretty significant differences in Common Core. One is that it will help those students that are very transient, that move from area to area. Okay. Because if I move from Arizona to Utah, we don't necessarily have the same standards. Under the Common Core, if I move to a school within that Common Core region, then the base standards should be the same. The second thing is they're going to be much more demanding. And there are fewer of those standards, but they drill down deeper.
Okay.
One of the things that I have often thought is that students really need to not only have a base of information, but they need to have the ability to apply that information. And to be quite honest, I don't believe that Arizona or many states have done that very well. We will give students some basic information. They memorize the information. They understand the information to the point of being able to provide it back to us. But taking that information now and being able to practically apply it is very, very difficult for young people, and one of the reasons is we've never really taught that. So it's what do we want students to know and be able to do? And that be able to do portion is going to change the way we teach.
Kids need to learn how to learn.
They need to learn how to learn and apply what they've learned.
Yeah.
And that is the part that we refer to those as the instructional shifts. Those are the kinds of things that are going to have to change in a classroom. And ADE, the Arizona Department of Education, is creating the what, as far as here's what teachers need to know to be able to apply the standards. The education service agencies, individual districts, and our regional service centers are applying the how. How do we want to provide that information to our teachers? So that practicality of being able to apply it is extremely important. The assessment is also going to be changing. We have historically had AIMS, which is the Arizona Instrument to Measure Standards, and that will actually, there was a statute that was passed this last year that would phase that out, and the state board has given us pretty clear guidelines as to how that's going to happen. It will be phased out over a period of years, and the new assessment, which actually has not been identified by the state board yet, is going to be phased in. Now, I think a lot of people believe that it's going to be the PARC exam, and PARC is Partnership for Assessment and Readiness for the Common Core. And again, it is a regional assessment. John Huppenthal, who we've already mentioned, serves on the PARC board.
Okay.
And individual states may modify both the standards and the assessment up to a certain percentage. So there is certainly some local control there. But for us to be able to do that, people in the field, teachers, parents, students, have to give us feedback as to what they think is important. And of course, governing boards will play a critical role in that as well. And then whatever this assessment is, whether it's PARC or some other assessment that the state board selects, will be the one that we use into the future.
Is the PARC assessment the most common of say the other Common Core states?
It appears to be at this point, but we have seen within the last 3 weeks several states saying that they're withdrawing from PARC because of the cost of the exam. It's almost twice what we're paying, for example, for AIMS. And so the cost is certainly going to have an impact. And the state board is free to put out a request for proposals and look at other assessments or to develop their own. They could even take the PARC exam, modify it to some degree, and put their own label on it if they wanted to.
So there's
so the state board certainly has some options. And that decision should be made here within the next few months.
And we'll be finding out more. We're going to have more to talk to you about, so keep the car idling, and we'll get back. It never changes. I mean, nothing does. Everything continues to change. And in education, it just seems like things move so fast sometimes. We always appreciate your coming and helping us sort through and swim through some of these things that are happening. Again, the 3 education funds. Let's remind folks as we wrap up today. Hotshot Education Fund. That's what you can write the check to. Check out online at the county schools website. You can go to Yavapai County and start there and get there and find a wealth of information, a lot of different ways to help out, especially the youngsters, the Yarnell 19. We thank you, Tim Carter, for joining us today.
My pleasure.
Always a pleasure to have you here. It's Countywide, and we'll see you next time.
This has been Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Listen in each Tuesday and Thursday as we tackle the hot topics and talk to the decision makers across Yavapai County. That's Countywide with Brad Miller and Paul David each Tuesday and Thursday on this Yavapai Broadcasting station.